equals the quaint cafe was tucked away at the very end of a narrow, winding street, its flickering neon sign casting hazy reflections on the damp, uneven cobblestones that lay beneath it. The air was imbued with the bittersweet and rich scent of freshly roasted coffee, swirling together with the soft hum of muted conversations that enveloped the room entirely, cocooning it in a comforting veil of anonymity. Dimly lit corners offered a perfect refuge, serving as ideal hideaways for those who were burdened by heavy emotional loads, shielding them from the prying eyes of the world beyond its doors. Here, seated alone at a weathered table, was Tom, nursing a cup of black coffee that had long since grown tepid and cold, its surface marred and ravaged by the countless fingerprints left behind by past patrons. A weary soul trapped in his own turbulent thoughts, he drifted in and out of consciousness, haunted relentlessly by echoes of what had once been vibrant and life-affirming, but now felt utterly cold and lifeless. The cafe had once been a haven of laughter and mirth, a sanctuary where Tom and his closest friend, Sarah, had shared their dreams, intimate stories, and deep sorrows. The worn furniture, marked with scratches and blemishes, bore witness to countless candid late-night confessions and shared whispered secrets. Yet now, the cafe felt transformed, like a tragic stage set for impending disaster, as the creaking chairs under the weight of latent and festering guilt played their mournful part in the slow unraveling of Tom's already fragile mind. The memory of their last heated argument loomed heavily over him, serving as a tormenting specter that occupied his thoughts. He could still clearly hear Sarah's voice, piercing the thick and oppressive silence of the night like fragile glass shattering. "How could you do this to me, Tom? I trusted you." Those bitter words echoed relentlessly, squeezing the breath from his lungs as if the very air were being crushed out of him. How, he wondered, could he have ever betrayed that unwavering trust? How could his ambition have drowned out the fierce loyalty he had once vowed to uphold? Fragments of that fateful decision flitted through his troubled mind like errant moths drawn to a flickering flame. Caught in a whirlwind of suffocating expectations, Tom felt a flicker of envy ignite within him when Sarah, with careful sincerity, confided in him her dream, an ambitious startup designed to help underprivileged children. When the opportunity arose to capitalize on her brilliant idea, he seized it with both hands, fully convinced that he was securing not only a blissful future for himself, but also fulfilling a purpose. In his blind ambition, he had tragically forgotten the very foundation of their cherished friendship, carelessly trading it in for the superficial charms of fleeting success. As days slowly turned into weary weeks, the cafe morphed into an unforgiving crucible of solitude. Friends grew scarce, all too aware of the whispers of betrayal that brewed ominously in the air like an uninvited storm threatening to erupt. The pressure within him became unbearable. A cacophony of crippling guilt and defensive denial wrestled for dominance in his increasingly fragmented psyche. Tom had hoped for even minimal support from Amelia, another friend intertwined in their trio, but when the news of his profound betrayal broke, she recoiled from him, cleaving through his already fragile conscience like a hot knife through butter. "Tom, you crossed a line that can never be uncrossed," she said, her eyes reflecting a mix of pity and contempt, leaving him feeling further isolated. "How do you even manage to sleep at night?" The haunting question gnawed at his insides like a relentless tick-tock of an insatiable clock, making each minute feel like an eternity. Sleep became an elusive hope that danced just out of reach, with every passing day bringing fresh reminders of Sarah's absence. A chair left conspicuously empty, laughter silenced under the weight of a heavy cloud, silence crashing down within the room like an unforgiving tidal wave. Tom began to question everything, paranoia creeping in like a shadowy phantom. Was he being watched? Did others know the full, dark depths of his betrayal? The once vibrant cafe had eerily transformed into a prison of his own making, its walls closing in around him like a vice amplified by his guilt. Every fleeting reflection he caught in the window brought pangs of painful familiarity. He felt safe and desperate all at once, knowing that Sarah was out there, nearby yet infinitely out of reach. Shouldn't he have reached out to her? Shouldn't he have offered even the simplest of apologies? Time danced cruelly around him, turning days into weeks, while the weight of guilt rooted itself deep in the very core of his heart, growing like a choking vine. But time has a way of shaping despair and revealing myriad hidden truths. One particularly chilly evening, amidst an unrelenting torrential rainstorm, Tom resolved to confront the complete wreckage of his selfish actions. He donned his coat, the familiar weight settling against him like the thick veil of remorse that had enveloped his spirit, and stepped out into the world with the intention of finding Sarah. His heart drummed nervously in his chest as he walked along those all-too-familiar streets, memories intertwining like ivy on a twisted vine, wrapping around his thoughts. The world around him felt inexplicably out of focus, as if faces were blurred by the self-imposed isolation he had constricted himself to. Until at last, he turned a corner, finding himself standing outside a restaurant, one where Sarah had often celebrated her small victories, where they had toasted to each other's accomplishments, laughter echoing off the walls and mingling with dreams. A dim light flickered softly through the window, revealing silhouettes engaging in shared moments of joy. He hesitated right there, torn between being drawn to the warm light spilling out into the night and being terrified of the confrontation he would surely face within. In that raw and vulnerable moment, he caught sight of her, shimmering before him like a beautiful mirage. She sat across from someone entirely unfamiliar, sharing laughter that seemed so genuine and innocent, yet utterly alien to his ears. Was that pure joy reserved solely for him, or did it now belong to those who honored the bonds of friendship they had so casually severed? Tom stood rooted to the ground, a mere observer of the joy and laughter he had once known intimately. Radiance surrounded Sarah, a stark contrast to the heartache that had reverberated through the empty streets he now walked alone. Suddenly, in a heart-stopping moment, she looked up, their eyes meeting for a fragile second that felt suspended in time. The world quieted around them. For that flickering instant, hidden, unspoken apologies hung heavily in the air between them like forgotten memories waiting to be reclaimed. Yet then she looked away, drowning in the laughter that spilled from her lips, reveling in the present moment, a present moment that he found himself irrevocably excluded from. Guilt surged forcefully within him, twisting his chest and making it impossible to breathe. In the following days, Tom retreated further into the shell of solitude he had constructed around himself, amplifying the ever-growing distance between his past and the stark reality of his present. He passed women who bore a striking resemblance to Sarah, but shook off the impulse to engage with any of them, as if invisible barriers reinforced his ever-deepening isolation. The relentless dance of guilt and denial circled around him, devouring his heart in a vicious cycle of self-punishment. What was he now but a mere shadow of the man who had made a fateful choice? Redemption felt like a bitterly cruel joke played on a puppet without strings. He began to question whether he truly sought forgiveness, or whether he merely wallowed in the mire of self-pity. Without Sarah, his muse, what remained for him to strive for? What was left to redeem except a tarnished reputation consumed by flames of guilt? Though winter's chill persistently clung to him, the warmth of longing never entirely dissipated from his heart. As the seasons melded together, Tom found himself yet again back at that cafe, now transformed into a bittersweet reminder saturated in layers of sorrow. Each tick of the second hand served only to count down opportunities squandered, buried in time like echoes in forgotten halls, lost and never to be reclaimed. He sought to grasp even a fraction of the depth of his failure, trapped incessantly in a cycle of coming to terms with the past, while moving forward along a path paved with regret and heartache. Perhaps, he mused, that was the true lesson to be drawn from this painful saga: to exist in a world where dire consequences linger like haunting specters, where fate deals bitter hands born from moments of weakness and misguided ambition. Could one ever atone for such tragic transgressions, or were they forever doomed to wander through life, carrying burdens too painful to bear, too heavy to share? As Tom lifted the chipped cup to his lips, tasting the bitter remnants of long-abandoned coffee, he cast a longing glance around the room. Lives unfolded around him, laughter and light dancing away from the darkness of his remorse and regret. In a breathtaking moment of clarity, he understood that it wasn't merely the act of redemption that mattered. It was the journey it called forth, a journey wherein sober truths were unveiled as he stood stripped bare beneath the weight of morality. In the end, leaving the cafe shattered him wide open again, exposing his most vulnerable self to the uncertain future. Would he have preferred the bliss of ignorance, living happily yet blissfully unaware of the lives he had touched and potentially harmed? Would Sarah ever truly forgive him? Or would her laughter solely serve as a sweet reminder of the unreachable happiness he had once taken for granted? Some choices echo through time and space, eclipsing all light and joy, leaving shadows so dark that even the stars appear to dim in their presence. Still at the precipice of infinite possibilities, torn between what might have been and the unforgiving reality of choices made, Tom took a deep and steadying breath. The weight of fate pressed down upon him like a heavy shroud. The streets beckoned, each echo promising both salvation and damnation in equal parts. He stepped forward into the continuous murmur of life that continued on, a lingering echo of frayed ties still binding him to Sarah despite the unbearable distance between them. Would he find her once more, or was their mutual tale destined to remain nothing more than a haunting dance of regret that echoed through the passage of time? Only time, and the choices that lay ahead, could reveal whether fate would weave their paths together again or leave them starkly split apart, eternally ensnared